You ready to go? Good morning, everybody. I'd like to go ahead and kick off the Warren County Board of Supervisors meeting. Today's date is Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. It's 9:30 a.m. We're in the Warren County Boardroom. Will you please stand and join for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on our agenda today is the consent agenda.
I would like to take off item A and just have a separate discussion and vote on that. Otherwise, I would move approval of the consent agenda as presented with item 1A as a separate item.
I'll second.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Can I ask Mr. Snell his reasoning for that?
I'll tell you here in a little bit, yeah, but I'd like to go ahead.
You'd just like to have a separate discussion about the claims item. We're still going to vote on the claims, and we're still going to try to potentially approve the claims. It's just he'd like to talk about it. So whether we do that under the entire consent agenda before we vote on the whole thing, we can do that as well. I don't have a preference. We just want to break it out and talk about.
There are several budget issues that are coming forward, and they relate to the claims area, and we just need to have some discussion about those things before we approve those just without discussion.
Okay,
From my
I just don't
perspective.
want to delay paying our vendors.
That is not the intent here today. It's for transparency and to have people understand why we're voting on things here and what's coming forward.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the consent agenda from item B through item V. And we have a motion and a second, so I'd like to do roll call, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye. Okay, so item B through V have been approved, and now we'd like to talk about A for claims.
Yes, I have some questions about this. There are a couple of things that raised some attention. One was there's a large amount here that does relate to the most recent election, so I'd like to have some awareness of that and how much more is coming on that and what the total cost of the overall elections are anticipated to be, because I know this is only part of the election cost. The other reason why I'm bringing this up is because otherwise in the budget, it's raising a lot of questions. I attended a meeting last week sponsored by the Iowa State Association of Counties relating to House File 718, which basically is limiting our revenue growth by 3%. Last year alone, we were at 8%. So it raises some very serious budgetary questions as to how we're going to finance budgetary operations this next year. I think we need to start talking about this now, and so I'm wanting to use this claims discussion as kind of a jumping off point to really start to talk about extra costs, extraordinary costs. This just happens to be one particular place where we have some extraordinary costs that weren't budgeted for in this particular year, and we have others that are going to be coming forward, I know, because of the, we've been talking about potential budget amendments for other departments as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we have a full understanding that we're going to need to look very, very carefully at our budgeting going forward to make sure that we are able to sustain and support our operations in the right way. I think we're going to have some very serious questions, unfortunately, about what are the nice things to do versus the things that are absolute necessity and have to do things. And those will, of course, be front and center when we get to our budgetary discussions coming up in January. But I think we need to start watching very carefully now those extraordinary expenses that are coming forth. And I would ask the auditor if she could, at some point in time, not today necessarily, but I think we need to have a full accounting of what the true cost of the election was. Your predecessor indicated the cost was only going to be $30,000. And this claim group alone is $30,000. So it's obvious her understanding of the budget and how much a special election was going to cost was way off the mark. So from that standpoint, I'd like to have a full accounting of what the true cost of this election was. That's kind of a secondary item here. My true reason for bringing this up is because we are going to have some very difficult decisions coming forward because of House File 718.
Okay, well, thank you for those comments. I do agree that budget is going to be a very difficult thing. We saw that coming last year, so what you want to see from, you just want to know the cost of the election, or did you want the format of the report, the claims report changed?
The claims report as it was fixed today. I had called because the report that we had received in our original budget packet was in a different format. And then this morning, the auditor's office, I assume, prepared it in a different way. So I appreciate that.
That's all taken care of?
It's taken care of.
Oh, good. Thank you for that.
Because I called, obviously, we received the budget packets yesterday, claims packets yesterday, and they were in a different format.
Okay.
And they were difficult to read in their presentation format, whereas the one that we received this morning in our packets is the one that we've been used to seeing, which is by department, so we can start to see the breakdown
Excellent.
of all the department spending, because that's going to be important, especially as we go forward with the budgetary discussions that I just mentioned a moment ago. We're going to have to be very much on top of the game here. That's why the electors put us in these chairs, and unfortunately, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. So I think as we go forward, having formats like this are important. So,
Okay. All right,
I
well,
would be willing to move the claims 1 in 1A as presented in the new format. Move approval.
Second.
okay. We have a motion and a second for item A in our consent agenda. Roll call, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye. So then,
Something?
certainly.
I think if you're so concerned about the election budget, why did we have to go to an election in the first place and not just accept Kim as the appointed auditor? It would have saved the taxpayers a lot of money.
To not go to an election?
Right.
It's what the people petitioned for it to go to an election.
Yeah. Iowa code states that the Board of Supervisors only has the power to appoint. We do not, it has to come from the people if they want a special election.
And that power relates to all the county offices. That's part of what the Constitution and the laws of the state of Iowa require us to do. So that when the process worked exactly the way it was supposed to,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I mean, that's fine that the public decided to petition and ask for an election. We had the election, but there is also a cost for that, and that's something that people need to understand.
My question was, why not just accept Kim as the appointed auditor and not go to an election?
We're not going to.
You decided to.
We'll do that off,
Something else.
we'll do that offline if it's not too much trouble. I can come explain to you why all those decisions were made, but I don't think the public needs to be aware. I think we have made the public aware of what we did in the process, but I don't think, it's not part of this meeting to talk about that. It's not on our agenda, but we'll talk about it. I think you'll feel good about it.
We
after
actually did explain why we voted the way we did at the time that we
Yeah,
made
we
the
did.
decision. So that's already been made very public, and that would be where I stand.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. The next item on our agenda is to consider a request to use the administration building parking lot for a drive-through flu clinic on Saturday, October 7th, 2023.
I would move approval of the request to use the administration building parking lot for a drive-through flu clinic on Saturday, October 7th, 2023.
Second?
Roll call, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye. That motion is approved. The next item is to consider an application to use the Warren County Justice Center grounds for the Wine, Witches, and Brews event Friday, October 27th in 2023.
I think we should hear what's planned. We've got somebody here to talk about that.
Leslie,
So
do you
let's
wanna
hear a
come-
little bit about can you come up here to the podium and just share with us what the plans are?
Can we get your name and address, Leslie?
You bet. Leslie Held, and my home address is 1006 South R Street. Also own Bob's Custom Trophies here in town, and I represent the Indianola Downtown Merchants. So we are on, without counting, about our 6th or 7th year on this event. We've built to a point where we welcome in about 1,000, mostly women, who shop that evening, and as they're shopping, they get samples of wine and brews and whatnot. For that event, our merchants every year report that they have record sales. So this is a great boom to pre-holiday shopping in our downtown square. We don't close off the square. They are just parking wherever. And they are going from store to store from 5 to 9. We've got some new additions. The Cottage has jumped in this year, and they're doing a VIP pre-party, and they're also doing an open post-party as well. But it's not only our retail merchants, but the other businesses get involved, and certainly our restaurants and our eateries and our bars are involved as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Sounds like fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's a crazy night, but there's a lot to do in 4 hours. So we appreciate your consideration of helping us out with bathroom use. And one thing I noticed that we did not have on the application, I always call Darren at last minute, and when we have that many women, is can we park in the administration building parking lot as well? So they fill the streets, they fill the square, every available parking spot within about 3 blocks is filled.
Was that part of your application to park?
It was not, it was not.
Would you like to amend that?
I would love to amend that. Then I don't have to call Darren. Oh, that would be wonderful, too. I hadn't even thought of that, House of Mercy. We use the opera, so,
We have some issues with, that we're sorting through. We had a request to park in the Justice Center, and we have vehicles in there all the time. And one of the challenges we're having with that is that, it's a secure facility.
right.
And I'm not saying that you can't enter our grounds pretty easily, but, with the fact that it's a housing unit.
Sure, right. I
And-
think that we stay out of the Justice Center parking and just leave that, and we're happy to put up no parking signs there if you need us to keep them out.
I just think for now, we got to work through we haven't really established a policy on Justice Center parking that I'm aware of.
Right.
Initially, the Board of Supervisors said a year and a half ago that they didn't think that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
This board's never been presented with that idea, and we really haven't even talked about it. So before we set a precedence or do something, I'd just like some time to have policy that applies to everybody at all times.
Right, I would agree. I think we stay out of the Justice Center, but if we can use the admin building and House of Mercy, that would be great.
Yeah.
We'll keep them out of that parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you very much.
I would move approval of the Warren County Justice Center grounds used for the Wine, Witches, and Brews event on Friday, October 27th, 2023,
And they can use the parking.
with the additional parking at the administration parking lot and House of Mercy.
Second?
Okay, roll call.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Hi.
Peter?
Aye. Okay, that is approved. Thanks again, Leslie, for being here. The next item on our agenda is to consider the application to use the Warren County Justice Center grounds for the 2023 Annual Children's Costume Party on Saturday, October 28th, with possible action.
Is that different than what she was just talking about?
Yeah,
Or is
that's,
that, there's an extension of what she was just talking about?
No.
It's something separate, I'm sure.
Okay.
Yes.
But I don't know who's running this particular party. Did this come from?
Parks and Rec, yeah.
Oh, it's a Park and Recs Department activity.
Well, I'm willing to move approval of the use of the Warren County Justice Center grounds for the 2023 Annual Children's Costume Party on Saturday, October 28th, 2023, as presented and requested in their application.
Second?
Roll call, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye. So that motion is approved. The next item is to consider the application to use the Warren County Justice Center grounds for the Indianola Downtown Farmers Market on Saturdays and from May through October 2024 with possible action. So you want to come up and kind of tell us what your thoughts are? What part of the grounds do you want to use?
Sure. So I'm requesting for May 4th, 2024 to October 26th, 2024. From the actual market, I see being from 8 to noon, but we'll need some setup time, so I'm hoping for 7 o'clock in the morning to about 1 o'clock in the afternoon for tear down. And on the east side of the courthouse is where we're looking at. Let's see, we're pretty flexible about where you would like us to be, but I see being on the grass facing the concrete, like the sidewalk area. Anything you'd like to say? I guess one other important thing is, I don't currently have insurance on this activity, but come next year, when it gets closer, I will definitely be.
You'll have the insurance.
The insurance for
Yep.
the farmer's market as a whole.
That'll be one requirement that we'll definitely have to
Definitely.
hold to. So as soon as you get that, and considering we approve this.
Right.
We'd want to get that in the works, get that in
Absolutely.
place before the event started next year,
So am I right in thinking then is you're relocating from the fairgrounds to downtown? Is that what you're doing? Or
No.
is this in addition to?
It's a new market. They are more than welcome to join us,
So
but it's a new
They're two
market.
different things then?
Completely, yep.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was the same, so that's why.
yep.
We've had a lot of support from the Downtown Merchants Association. They've been kind of pushing for this
They're
for a while.
pretty excited about this.
Yeah, yeah, I'll bet.
The only question I would have, and it's one that I'm sure that our folks can work through, is since you're going to be setting up on the lawn area, is that correct?
Right, and like I said, we're pretty flexible, whatever, if you prefer us to be in certain spots, we're good with that.
That's the only question I would raise, for our facilities folks to be aware, and if there are considerations, I don't know if we have a sprinkler system or different things like that are up there on that lawn, but if we do, we just need to be very careful
Yep.
that wherever things
Right.
are being set up, they're aware of the facilities and the facilities needs. That'd be my
Yeah.
only concern.
Yeah. What, will you be needing electricity or anything like that?
Currently, I don't see that as
Okay.
something, possibly. We're in the beginning stages of it, of
Okay.
putting
It
this all
depends on each
together.
individual vendor too. Some of them bring coolers. Sometimes they're selling meat or
Yeah.
poultry or something.
Okay,
Our stand, we really don't.
okay.
If we had needed electricity, is that something we need to go to the city for?
That's my question, because I know we have outlets on the building,
Right.
but I don't know about in the sidewalk in
actual
front.
area,
Yeah, so,
I'm willing to make a motion to approve their application pending a meeting with the facilities folks to understand what their additional needs are, and
Okay.
also making this contingent upon insurance coverage as well.
okay, second?
You second that? Okay. All right, let's see.
Oh, do I need to read the place? I move that we allow use of the Warren County Justice Center grounds for the Indianola Downtown Farmers Market on Saturdays from May through October 2024, pending
Insurance,
gotta say,
insurance coverage.
well, I was gonna say pending insurance being provided, but also I was wanting to include
I wonder if we could.
the
could we
facilities
make-
committee.
Like contingent on the
Contingent on,
facility,
yeah.
facility committee's approval.
Please make my motion, including the
enough.
word contingent upon facilities committee approval, or at least acceptance, and then insurance being provided, proof of insurance.
Okay. And can I include the time, make an amendment to your motion from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m.?
Yes, that's a friendly amendment.
Okay,
From
And
7
the-
to 1.
And this will be for the year 2024, May through October.
yes.
Yep.
Second.
Okay, okay, so we have a motion with a lot of contingencies, and we have a second. So can we get roll call, please?
McIntyre.
Aye.
Snell.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye, so that is approved. Thanks for attending our meeting today. The next item on our agenda is to consider the approval for home-based primary care VA vehicle parking at the administration building with possible action. Do you guys want to come up and tell us what you have on your mind? It doesn't sound like it's too big of a deal.
Think. We've had some difficulty. Good morning, I'm Heather Johnson. I'm the nurse manager of home-based primary care with VA Central Iowa, and this is Sherry Northway, one of my nurses.
Okay.
So with my program, we serve about 300 veterans in the Central Iowa area. Specifically in Warren County, we're seeing an increase of veterans that were requesting our services, which is great. Coming along with that, we would like to propose parking a government vehicle on grounds here or somewhere in Indianola. We had some difficulty acquiring a location. It is a government service vehicle, so it does require to be on government property. That's why we're coming here to you this morning. We would park the government vehicle on your grounds. In the time that the government vehicle was in use, Sherry's car would be here in their place. We wouldn't require any kind of assistance. We'd have a lockbox on the outside of the car, so she's not going to have to come inside and get keys from anybody. It would be self-sufficient, just a place to park the vehicle. Along with this would be a memorandum of understanding that would come from OGC, Office of General Counsel with the VA. I've sent that over to Michaela this morning. They just had sent it to me. It just basically outlines that you guys are agreeable to let us park the vehicle here, that we have insurance on the vehicle, that you guys wouldn't be liable for any of that thing, and it's just like a parking permit essentially for the government vehicle.
Okay. And in that memorandum, do you have a specific contact in case we need vehicle to be moved?
Sure, we can include that, yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
I was just thinking about for snow removal or whatever issues
Well,
too.
that's
That, and, you
I
know,
could
our
also-
parking lot is under construction, you know, or iffy, so yeah, yeah.
With that lockbox, if I needed to provide that code to somebody here to be able to get into that lockbox and relocate the government vehicle in the parking lot, we could do that as well. Otherwise, Sherry lives in Milo, Indianola area.
Okay.
So she would be able to relocate the vehicle if needed as well. So we could do both,
Super.
contact information for her and then
Thank you.
also provide that code to whoever needed it.
All right. Well, I'll make the motion. Home-based primary care to approve their VA vehicle parking. I'm going to say the House of Mercy parking lot. We use this parking lot a lot for other vehicles, so, and it would be come and go traffic, so I think that'd be easier access.
Which one are you suggesting, across
The
the
House of
street?
Mercy
Yeah, I would.
parking
I would
lot.
agree.
Probably. I can get it though, yeah.
Do you have the address, the actual?
Yeah, I can get it for the documents, yeah, okay.
Across the street.
Okay,
I
so,
would second that.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Snell.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye. Okay, that motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kayla, can you take them and show them through the break room which one to? Okay. So the next item on our agenda is to appoint the following representatives to the Central Iowa Regional Transportation Planning Alliance, the CERTPA, with possible action. We'll be addressing Transportation Technical Committee, that would read Tim Hill, and Transportation Policy Committee, alternate Tim Hill.
Yes, in fact, what this amounts to is Tim's being the one that stepped in where David Carroll was our representative on those areas. And Tim and I talked about this yesterday, so he was ready to step in and do those activities. So I would move approval of an appointing Tim Hill to be our representative on the Transportation Technical Committee and the alternate on the Transportation Policy Committee.
Second?
Roll call?
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye. Motion is approved. Next item on our agenda is to consider the offer to purchase a permanent easement for project number LMP 2023-91, Parent 4, between Warren County and Leland D. Scott and Marjorie East Stott, and authorize the board chair to sign all documents with possible action.
This one and the next one are both for a bridge replacement project we did on a dirt road, 95th south of Stone Street. It's just to get a little extra right-of-way so we could fit structures in there. We only had 40 foot of existing right-of-way, so we needed a little bit more to fit a structure in.
So is there a cost to the county to purchase these easements?
Yeah, I generally do $10,000 an acre, and I think it was 0.08 acres, so $800 for each one.
For each one, okay.
I would move approval of resolution number 23, approving the permanent easement and purchase of land for $800 for project number L-MP-2023-91, Prenz 4, between Warren County and Leland D. and Marjorie E. Scott, and authorize the board chair to sign all documents.
Second?
Roll call, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye. That motion is approved. Let's run to consider the purchase of a permanent easement for project number LMP 2023-91, Parent 4, between Warren County and Richardson Worldwide LLC, and authorize the board chair to sign all documents. Same plan?
Yep.
$800?
It's also listed as resolution number 23. Is that an error? I'm just curious.
Well, generally, it's 23 dash, whatever the
Okay,
actual resolution
got it.
number is.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep.
I would move approval of the permanent easement listed as resolution dash 23 dash L dash MP dash 2023 dash 91, Prenz 4, between Warren County and Richardson Worldwide LLC, and authorize the board chair to sign all documents.
Second?
Roll call?
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
I just learned something. That all these resolutions, you know, the dash, the 23 dash. I didn't know that. It's interesting.
We're pretty fancy around here. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to consider the usages of opioid settlement funds for the opioid task force trailer with possible action. So we talked about this in our last work session, and we had John Stageman come in and show us the trailer. I don't know if there's a amount that you want to transfer, just whatever the cost is for the trailer, that's what we're going to transfer over to the fund?
I think we were asking up to 15,000
Okay.
of the 250 that's available.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to transfer a maximum amount of $15,000 to the opioid settlement fund from the opioid task force, or for the trailer from the opioid settlement funds. I'll make that motion.
Second?
Roll call, please.
McIntyre?
Aye.
Snell?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye, motion is approved. Next item on our agenda is to have consideration of additional jail staff position with possible action. And Sheriff Carrico was in at our last work session. Lieutenant Burrows is here, if we have any questions on that. I don't have any questions. Make a motion to approve an additional jail staff position.
Was there a sheet on that, other than what we received at the, could you just come up and refresh our memories just a little bit?
The closed session that we had had.
Okay,
You remember that?
yes. Okay.
without
So
going into detail.
The jail position within that. Okay, I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second on adding an additional jail staff position. Roll call, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Snell.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye. So that motion is approved.
Thank you much.
All right.
Thank you for being here. The next item on our agenda, budget reports. Hi, Megan.
Hello. So starting off with the expenditures for August, we're about 17% through the fiscal year. The departments that we're looking at right now would be nutrition. These are the ones with the expenses that are running a little high. They had some accrued invoices as well as an increase of Justice Center-related expenses over what was budgeted. Medical examiner, this is basically based on estimates, so sometimes they end up getting out of whack, and we did get a large expense. So I'll continue to monitor, but it is likely to need to be included in the budget amendment. The capital projects, so that one's running a little high, above what the 17%, but that's actually okay because most of that is the secondary road shop. And once we complete the expenses that are budgeted under the capital project, under the bond funds, then those expenses will move to the engineer.
Okay.
And then townships, I am watching this one for an amendment. There were some townships that submitted their wages for fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 24, so that caused it to go up a little bit. So Linnea and I have been talking on ways to try to get the townships to turn their reports in a little more of a timely fashion. General services, so we had large one-time expenses that we've already paid for, so that's what kind of pushes that a little bit higher. We paid a fiscal year 23 audit expense and insurance expenses that again are one-time. And then zoning, they purchased a vehicle which we had originally budgeted in ARPA. So what we'll do is just amend ARPA down and amend their budget up.
Okay.
So that's the expenses. Next, if we look at the revenues.
Hey, could you, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
I was, you're going just a little quick for my brain this morning, so that's on me, okay? What's going on with general services again?
So it's a lot of one-time expenses that get
hit early?
Hit early. Yep.
Okay, that's it though? There's no like concern overall?
No concern overall. The only thing that I'll watch is that the insurance might have gone up a little bit more than we budgeted. But no huge concern at this point.
Okay, all right, great.
We usually are running high at this point in the year because of that.
Okay, thank you.
At what point here are we going to need to address the nutrition line item? I noticed we continue to run a little bit rich on that, and then we've had other conversations in our work session. So I'm assuming there's going to probably need to be a conversation on this at some point. Is this going to be separate from, say, a budget amendment, or will there be?
So it would be included in a budget amendment. I think we'll need to amend both their expenses a little bit higher, but also I think we're going to need to amend to do a larger, another transfer to them, because we did 100,000. But if you look at your last sheet, the nutrition fund right now is at about 4,000. And I think we're going to want to transfer so we're not sitting so close all the time in that fund. So we'll need to amend for the actual expenses and then amend to be able to do another transfer from the general fund.
Because it looks like what we've got is a cash flow issue more than a expenditure issue. Because we have revenue coming in, but it's just not timing quite right. So it's coming across as though we've got a problem there. And I think we just need to get a little bit more cash into the hopper there so we don't keep running into this problem.
Yep.
And Sheriff Kirko had said that he's willing to adjust how he pays, or so we just need to dive into, like pay a little, like he could pay early, like we do. I think she's gonna need this much money next month, and they can estimate it and make sure the payments go out a little earlier.
Love
So
it.
So that may help too, because I hope it is just a cash flow thing and not
Yeah.
expenses are more than revenue thing.
Right.
And I'd like to know, like, what is the end game on nutrition at some point? Like, what does that cost us to operate? Because
because
just
I-
going up a little bit all the time.
You know, for me, it's been a learning experience this year, obviously going through the budget discussion the first quarter of this calendar year. And at the time, it looked like the budget was padded. Well, it was padded for a reason. Now we know that and understand that.
Right.
Or at least I do. I understand it in a different way. So I think that as we budget in the future, we just need to know that they need to have a certain amount of cash flow available so that we don't have continual budget amendments all the time going forth. So that's part of the learning process.
Right, and
And also, let's face it, we didn't know how things were going to work because it was a new program, a
Exactly.
new way of operating. So I think that this first year has been a learning experience for everybody involved. Not a bad thing. I mean, it's a positive, but there are growing pains that go with
Yeah.
that sort of situation. So that's how I view it.
okay, thank you for those remarks.
Okay. So over to revenues. I'm going to go over these kind of quickly because for the most part, it's timing issues. Like for the auditor's office, it's the timing of election revenue. Department of Human Services, as well as DCAT. Those are both timing of when the state payments come in. They're fully funded. Their programs are fully funded by the state, so that's not of a large concern. Engineer, it's the timing of the transfer is tied to the timing of the apportioning of taxes. So once that all lines up, then their transfer will show up in their budget and will be more spot on to where we are in the year. Wellness, again, that's a transfer timing. Zoning, they are a little under for revenue for the budget. We haven't received zoning fees or subdivision plating funds, and they are a bit under on minor plating fees. And then non-departmental, that would be taxes, and it's a timing thing, kind of similar to the secondary roads transfer, which is all tied to taxes. We received our first apportioning at the end of August.
Okay, great.
That's the revenues. And then finally, looking at all the fund balances. Now, one thing I noticed this morning when I was going back through these is that the new fund, Fund 8, which is the admin building fund, didn't pull on the report. So when I copied my numbers into here, it didn't pull. So what that would affect is that obviously our funds would be about $1.2 million more.
Okay.
So if you look at general basic and we're down 811,000, we have to think that we just transferred 1.2 million to the building fund. So that would explain why the general basic fund is down. Nutrition, we've already discussed. They're running lower than last year. And then the other funds that are down are funds that we would expect and want to go down, the ARPA as we spend those funds. And then all the capital project funds as we spend those funds as well.
Great.
Any questions?
No. The rural basic fund looks healthy. I guess I'd make that comment.
Yep.
Okay. Well, anything else for Megan on the budget report?
No, just keep us informed what's going on here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan, I just thought about it just a second here. I mean, what were your thoughts on the seminar last week that we went to on the House File 718? Because you and I had talked briefly about last year and what our revenue growth was versus what the limitations are. I mean, how do you see some of that potentially impacting us here with our budgetary decisions going forward?
So it definitely will limit, we can only have our tax maximum at a lower level, so our tax rate will go down.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty simple calculation on how to calculate, so we can start kind of looking through those numbers now and loosely estimating. But there definitely will be a little bit of it'll be a little tighter, because they're limiting how much our increase in valuations can actually increase what we're getting in taxes. The big one would also be the rural basic fund, because that is also tied to what we maxed this year. And we have that low, I think 1.6.
So we're going to be stuck there.
So yes, we'll be stuck there, actually a little bit lower than there. The one thing that we can think about, though, is we have not used a rural supplemental in the past. So if we need to, we can start using the rural supplemental, because you have to be maxed out to use the supplemental. The new max is that lower number that they calculate
That's
based on the
right.
taxes. So
Okay.
if we need to, that's one thing we can start looking at.
Because I hadn't thought about that. I was thinking that was at the higher number that we had, because we were so low, we couldn't ever add a supplemental, but you're
Yep.
saying we can add a
We
supplemental?
can, because now the maximum is based off of our current tax rate.
Right.
So the new maximum is a low number. We never could before, because we weren't at the maximum of the
Right.
395, but now the maximum is just based on our current rate.
Yeah.
That's great.
Really, the supplementals then are the only safety
Love it.
valve for us in terms
At least that's one
of
good
extra
thing.
expenditures.
Say that again.
I said the supplementals, rural supplemental, will be really the only safety valve we have.
Yep.
To add extra revenue, even though our overall, I call it the pie, the economic pie is growing bigger, we're going to be limited to just 3%. And what did you say we grew up at last year? Wasn't it over 8%?
Yeah, yep. It was about 8%. Yeah, I think it was
Our
over.
new money was, like, based on that 8%, our real actual dollar new money was like 1.2 million or 1.1 million, or, do you remember?
I
what
can't.
the
Yeah, I was
dollar-
thinking something like that, but that
It was just
represented,
slightly over a million, and if you think about it, if it goes from 8% down to 4%, in actual dollars, that's like a $500,000 cut
huge.
to our budget.
Yep.
you know,
Exactly.
Generally, and so you got to start answering questions, just like you started saying this morning with the claims and the numbers. But hey, the way these new laws are coming in, we're going to be forced into revenue positions where we've never been before.
True.
And we really need to start taking a hard look at that. And
Well-
what is our authority on a rural supplemental? Can we just start?
There's specific expenses that go in there. So like the engineers, benefits, I believe is one of them. I have a breakdown from this year of stuff, because to calculate what our max was, I kind of put as if we'd had a rural supplemental, and the expenses that would go in there, but they're very specific, same as the general supplemental, and we don't have a lot of flexibility there, because we have basically moved everything to the general supplemental that can be in the general supplemental. But it's very similar expenses that go in the general supplemental now, just for the departments that are paid out of, or can be paid out of, rural basic.
so we'll have to be on top of our game as we go forward here, because if you don't take advantage of that, you're going to be stuck actually with a potential decrease overall, especially if we're at an inflation rate in excess of 8% on items.
And especially since they're looking at local option sales tax stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, we're going to go right back to where we were last year.
Exactly.
You know, in the worst case scenarios of all these things going on and all these moving targets, if everyone lands in the worst case scenario.
There is one side of it that we will not be criticized on next year. And you know what that is?
What?
The levy rate. Because the levy rate will not even be an issue. In fact, at the seminar the other day, they said the whole max levy discussion goes out the window. It's gone.
Oh, thank God.
Because
hate
they've put on this other handcuff, which basically
Yeah.
limits our ability to use revenue growth.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, the whole max levy discussion that has
We
been
only
in
had
the
it for a couple
past
years,
is
so,
gone.
yeah.
So
It was ridiculous.
the issues that were raised up in this last budget cycle that we all experienced going through that and people's misunderstanding of how things were actually figured, it's not going to be there at all because of the limitations
So
here.
you still have to have 2 budget hearings, but instead of a max levy hearing, it's
The max revenue.
It's basically the same thing, but not, because you don't have to vote on anything. So it's just a public hearing, so you're not saying, you are still setting the maximums, though. Once we present for that public hearing, we're capped at those. I mean, we're going to be capped at it anyways, so you're capped at those amounts, but you don't have to vote on anything. It's just so the public can see the numbers, give their feedback, and then you come back and do the second hearing. So it's a very similar process, but you don't have to
Okay.
actually vote on the maximum levy.
Yeah, because there is no max levy anymore. Because it basically was eliminated through this process.
Yep. Yep. And the new budget deadline is April 30th for all entities, which sounds great, but really, there's these steps. That's still everything's super condensed in the process.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and we're one of 5 counties in the state that are at this situation. It's because of our growth rate that we've had in the past. And so we're in that small little group. We can actually, I'm going to sound like I'm sarcastic here, which I am. We're limited. We get to go to 3% versus everybody else that's limited to 2%. And if you're in the group between, help me out on this, is between 3% and 6% growth, you are stuck at 2%. But because we have grown in the past over 6%, we are in that group, most likely will be again this year, we get to go to 3%. So again, I'm being a little sarcastic in how I'm saying this.
Yeah.
But those folks that are less than 3% growth, they can go up to 2.99%.
Really?
So
I thought
so
it was-
Lynn County, as an example, they were at that sweet spot, like 2.95%.
Yes. And so they were able
And
to
so
go
they-
to 4, right?
No.
No, 3?
They can go to 2.95. They don't get to go any higher.
Here.
Instead of being limited to only 2. You see, if you're at 3% or more, up to 6% growth, you're limited to 2%.
You're divided by 102%, and then us being above 6%, we're divided by 103%. So we're actually even more limited.
Okay.
And then those, I think those up to 3%, below 3%, they're just limited by the max levy. So they can go, like if we ended up only getting 2% growth, we could go up to 3.5, or stay at 3.5, and we could do whatever we wanted with the rural basic. But what they're trying to do is get those counties that are above 3.5 down to 3.5, so that it's a true cap on everyone.
I get that.
And so we really
but-
have handcuffs put on us.
Exactly.
And Norwalk is an example. I've been communicating with those folks, and they've indicated to us before, I think when Luke's been here and things, but they are saying, wow, we're really not in a good way here because they're limited to the 3% just like we are.
I appreciate the state tackling property tax, but to me, they needed to start with the schools.
Yes, because they're
That
the
is
largest
the
group.
huge.
Yeah.
They never go down. It's always starting right where they were last year and then a percentage up. That's what they cut. They don't cut last year's budget, whereas ours can be cut from last year's as well. So it's just frustrating, especially when they're at 50 and 60% of our property taxes. It just,
I think that this limitation affects the schools just like it does. Isn't it any jurisdiction?
I thought it was just cities and counties.
No, I think this includes the schools as well. Doesn't it?
I can't remember.
I was saying that
I
it
know
affected
we
all
have-
the property tax folks.
We have to we have to send out a mailing this year showing the taxes of school, city, county. So I know we have to show, like in the percentage, like you said, if it's 60% to the school,
Yeah.
we'll spell that out to each property owner in the county, they have to get a notice. But I can't remember.
know if the schools have
I'd
the
have to
same
go back and look
restrictions
at
in
my
place.
notes.
I mean, just because we report it out doesn't mean, you know, they may not have the same restrictions that we have, the new laws
Yeah.
that are coming in. I don't know.
They might, I can't.
I think they do, because I think the law was blanket across all the property tax entities. So, because, I think so. I'd have to go back and look at the notes that we had last week. Megan, that
I'd
might
have
be
to look
something we
too.
want some clarification on, just to make sure we're not misspeaking here. But, yeah, this is a very difficult situation, and it really started to hit me as we started to look at things here today. I'm sorry to bring this to
No,
everybody's attention,
I
but
appreciate it, especially the
after being at
education.
that seminar last week, and understanding the true ramifications of this, we really are going to have to, I think, look seriously within Warren County and make some tough choices as to what's nice to do versus what we have to do.
Right.
And in fact, this would be the question I would raise back to our legislator folks. You have to ask the real big question here: what is the real goal here? What is the big picture from the state of Iowa perspective? What is the big goal here? And it does make you wonder if this is a backdoor way of reorganizing county government.
Well, yeah, they took a lot of our authority away last year, and this is supposed to be the first of a phase of 5.
Right.
So-
So the question, I think, comes back to us as a board and as representing our county. How are we going to deal with these changes coming forward? And I think people need to understand that these changes, and first of all, this is not a home rule issue. That was made very, very clear to us when they started the seminar the other day. The power for this type of finance and things and taxation rule is in the power of the legislature.
Okay.
Okay, so this is not a home rule issue. They went overboard. I've heard that every time I've gone to one of these things with ISACs. They've always started the meeting out very, very clearly that this is not a home rule issue, because the legislature does have the authority to do what they're doing.
Okay.
And so it is not something that's in our purview to make these decisions. We have to work with what they basically are
Yeah.
letting us do, is what it amounts to. So from that standpoint, we've got some real challenges here, I think, to look at every activity that goes on here in the county. And I think, I hate to say it, I think we're going to have to look at, does this department need to exist? Does this activity need to exist?
You're right.
And I'm going to probably be asking some very, very tough questions going the
Same
next
here.
3 months as we get into budget session. And every department, I think, will have to be justified that it needs to exist in county government, because I think that's where we are,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I agree.
And I think going back to the bigger picture, state of Iowa picture, I think all counties, in fact, hearing the folks from our brethren across the southern tier of the state, they were really talking and saying, what do you want us to do? We only have 4,000 people in our
Exactly.
counties.
Yep.
How are we going to fund all this? How are we going to do all this? They're really in a tough boat. So the question, I think, really becomes for them, are they going to be, doing multiple county jurisdictions, or
Yeah.
maybe sheriffs or other types of things? Or how are they going to do those types of things? I think that question, even at a growth county like us, we're going to be stuck asking that same question, not in the same way.
Right,
that it
taking on
affects
those
folks across the
responsibilities.
southern
Yep.
tier of the state. But I think that's where we are. And the handcuffs are going to get tighter.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's why we're here.
Yep.
That's why we're here.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Megan. Good job. Appreciate it. And Megan will be going off and getting married this next week.
Yes.
So be thinking about her.
Congratulations.
All right. Okay, next item on our agenda is to receive and file the reports from General Assistance, the Humane Society, and the Recorder. I'll make a motion to receive and file the General Assistance Humane Society and Recorder reports.
Second.
Roll call, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Snell.
Aye.
Aye. I'm going to forego the next item, supervisor report for me personally, just for the sake of time.
I'm not going to say much because I've said so much today. I apologize. I do have pretty heavy series of meetings on Thursday this week. So we have aging group, we have MPO, and we have, oh man, I can't remember what the third one is. Anyway, I've got a whole bunch of meetings on Thursday that I'm going to be attending, and I've already talked about the one I was at last week, so.
Okay. Well, I have attended the special meeting to canvass the election, Board of Supervisors. Attended a Raise the Floor movie for understanding poverty issues. Met with the weed commissioner. Attended countywide meeting with Representative Miller Meeks and other representatives throughout Warren County. Attended the Milo City Council Board of Supervisors work session, and we had a closed session. I took the past chair of the Warren County, it was actually the Courthouse and Jail Committee through the new Warren County Justice Center with Lieutenant Burrows. Met with 3 citizens, or was contacted by 3 citizens through various means to discuss relationship of Board of Supervisors and the public, and then met with zoning director concerning staffing. That's my report.
Wow, nice report, Crystal. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is our public input section. The board will not take any action on the comments due to the requirements of the open meeting law, but may do so in the future. No public input will be allowed for any of today's agenda items. Is there anybody from the public who would like to talk to the Board of Supervisors? It does not appear to be any. Our next meeting date is October 3rd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
All right,
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Roll call, please.
McIntyre.
Aye.
Snell.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.
October 3rd is my mother's birthday. She'll be